The kettle was still whistling when my granddaughter walked into my kitchen and told me I needed to start packing. I had been making my afternoon tea, the same Earl Grey I had been drinking every day at 3 o'clock since my husband passed in 2019. The light was coming through the window the way it does in Charleston in late October, that soft amber color that makes even the dust in the air look like something precious. I had just taken down the blue china cup my mother gave me for my wedding when I heard the screen door slap shut behind her. "Grandma, we need to talk." I should have known from her voice. There's a particular tone people use when they've already made a decision and they're just informing you of it. I had heard that tone from my father when he sold our family farm in 1968. I had heard it from my husband when he decided we were moving from Asheville to Charleston in 1994. And now I was hearing it from my own granddaughter, a girl I had raised for half her life while her mother was off finding herself in Sedona. I poured the water over the tea bag and watched the steam rise. "What is it, sweetheart?" She sat down at my kitchen table without being invited. That was the first thing I noticed. In my house, you wait to be asked to sit. My mother taught me that, and I taught her mother that, and her mother was supposed to teach her. Somewhere along the line, that thread had broken. Marcus and I have been talking about the house. Marcus is her husband. They had been married for 2 years and living in my guest bedroom for 18 months of that. Ever since they'd lost their apartment in West Ashley after he quit his 3rd job in a row. I had told them they could stay until they got back on their feet. That was a phrase I used, until they got back on their feet. I should have put a date on it. My mother always said, an open-ended invitation is a closed-ended mistake. What about the house? She wouldn't look at me. She was tracing the wood grain on my table with her fingernail. That table belonged to my grandmother. It came from a farmhouse in Beaufort County that doesn't exist anymore, a place my great-grandfather built with his own hands after he came back from the war. I had refinished it 3 times in my life. Once when I got married, once after my son was born, and once after my husband died, when I needed something to do with my hands. We think it's time you started thinking about what's next for you, the next chapter. I set my teacup down very carefully. I had learned a long time ago that when you feel your blood start to move faster, the first thing to do is slow down your hands. The next chapter of what exactly? Grandma, this house is huge. It's 3 bedrooms. You're up here all alone. It doesn't make sense. Marcus's mother knows a really lovely community over near Mount Pleasant. They have meals included and there's activities, and you wouldn't have to worry about the yard anymore. I don't worry about the yard. I have Wendell come do the yard. Well, Wendell is expensive, and that's another thing we wanted to talk about, sweetheart. My voice was quiet. I have a quiet voice when I'm angry. My husband used to say that was the most frightening thing about me. Whose house are you sitting in right now? She finally looked up at me. And what I saw in her face wasn't shame. It wasn't even discomfort. It was something I had never seen before in this girl I had bathed and braided and walked to her first day of kindergarten. It was the look of someone who had already decided I wasn't a person anymore. I was a problem to be managed. That's the thing we wanted to discuss. Marcus has been looking into it. Since we've been here taking care of you for so long, there are options. There's something called elder cohabitation transfer, where, stop talking. She stopped. Where is Marcus right now? He's at his mother's. We thought it would be better if I came alone first. To, have a daughter-to-daughter talk. You are not my daughter. The words came out before I had decided to say them. But I didn't take them back, because in that moment, sitting in my kitchen with my mother's china and my grandmother's table in the afternoon light I had earned the right to enjoy, I realized that something had changed in this girl, and it had probably been changing for a long time. And I had been too lonely and too soft and too willing to believe in her to see it. She started crying. Not real crying. The kind women learn to do when they want something. I had done it myself when I was 22 and trying to get my father to let me marry a man he didn't approve of. I knew what fake tears look like because I had cried them. I can't believe you're being like this. Marcus said you would be like this. He said you'd never appreciate everything we've done for you. What have you done for me? We've been here. We've been here. We've been here. We've been with you. We've been keeping you company, helping you when you needed it, sweetheart. I picked up my tea again and took a small sip. It was still too hot, but I needed something to do with my mouth other than say what I wanted to say. In the 18 months you and Marcus have lived in my guest room, you have eaten my food, used my electricity, parked your cars in my driveway, and contributed exactly $0 to this household. The only time you helped me was when I asked you to bring in the groceries, and even then you complained that the bags were too heavy. Marcus has not held a job for more than 3 months at a time since you got here. I have been paying his car insurance because you told me his license would get suspended otherwise. I have not asked you for a single thing, and now you're sitting in my kitchen telling me about an elder cohabitation transfer. She had stopped crying. Real anger has a way of clearing up fake tears. You don't understand. The market has changed. Marcus's mother says houses like this in this neighborhood are going for over $600,000 now. If you sold and moved into a community, you could live comfortably for the rest of your life, and we could finally get our own place. Everyone wins. Get out of my kitchen. Grandma, get out of my kitchen. Go back to the guest room. Pack your things. I want you and Marcus out of this house by the end of the week. She stood up. Her face had gone red and tight. You can't do that. There are laws. We've been living here for over a year. We have rights. I had heard that line before. From my son's first wife, who told me she had rights to half of my husband's pension when they divorced. From a contractor who told me he had rights to twice the agreed price because he'd had to dig deeper than expected. From every person in my long life who had ever tried to take something from me by waving the word rights in my face like a flag they'd never read. Get out of my kitchen, I said again. We'll see who has rights. She left. I heard the screen door slap shut, and I heard her car start in the driveway, and I heard the engine fade down Trad Street. And then I sat alone at my grandmother's table for a long time, listening to the silence in my house. My tea had gone cold. I made a fresh cup. And then I picked up the telephone and called a woman I went to high school with, a woman named Hazel, who became one of the best real estate attorneys in Charleston before she retired. I knew Hazel still kept her hand in. She did consultations for old friends. Hazel, I said when she answered, I need you to tell me everything I need to know about getting 2 people out of my house who think they have squatters' rights. She was quiet for a moment. Honey, tell me what happened. I told her. I told her everything. About the 18 months. About the car insurance. About the elder cohabitation transfer. About the look on my granddaughter's face when she said I wasn't a person anymore, even though she didn't use those words. When I was finished, Hazel said, First thing, don't touch their things. Don't touch their things. Don't pack them up for them. Don't put anything outside. Don't change the locks. Not yet. Are you writing this down? I am. Second thing, did you ever at any point accept money from them in exchange for living there? Did they ever pay rent? Did they ever pay you for groceries, for utilities, for anything that could be characterized as rent? Never. Did you ever have anything in writing, any kind of lease, any kind of agreement? Never. Good. That's very good. In South Carolina, the distinction between a tenant and a house guest is critical. If you never accepted rent and there's no agreement, they're not tenants, they're licensees. And a licensee's invitation can be revoked. In English, Hazel. In English, sweetheart, they're guests. And a host has the right to ask guests to leave. The trick is how you do it, so they can't come back later and claim they were tenants who were wrongfully evicted. I want you to write them a letter. Not an email. Not a text message. A letter, on paper, signed and dated. You're going to tell them their permission to stay in your home is being revoked, effective in 30 days. You're going to mail 1 copy by certified mail, and you're going to hand them a copy in person, and you're going to keep a copy for yourself. 30 days. 30 days. I know you said by the end of the week. I understand the feeling, but 30 days makes you bulletproof. 30 days means no judge in this state on either side of the aisle is going to find that you didn't give them reasonable notice. After those 30 days, if they're not gone, we file a trespass action and you'll have a sheriff's deputy escort them off the property. I wrote it all down. My hand was steady. I have a steady hand. I sewed quilts for 40 years. You can't be a quilter with a shaky hand. Hazel, one more thing. My granddaughter said something about an elder cohabitation transfer. Have you ever heard of such a thing? She made a sound like a bark. Sugar, that's not a real thing. That's a thing somebody told her or her husband over a beer somewhere. There's no such concept in South Carolina law. Now, there are situations where someone might try to claim adverse possession or argue some kind of equitable interest, but those would all require years of paying property taxes or making improvements to the property or some kind of established understanding that they would inherit. From what you've told me, none of that applies. All right. Are you all right, honey? I thought about it. I thought about it, my granddaughter's face. I thought about how she had sat down at my table without being asked. I thought about the 18 months of dirty dishes left in the sink, and the loud music coming from the guest room at 2 a.m, and the time Marcus had taken my husband's old fishing rod out of the garage without asking and broken the tip. I'm going to be, I said. That night, I wrote the letter. I wrote it by hand on the good stationery my husband gave me for our 30th anniversary. I have a fountain pen that I use only for important correspondence. I used it for the letter. I told them in 3 short paragraphs that the arrangement was over. I gave them the date, October 31st, by which they had to be out. I told them that any property remaining after that date would be considered abandoned. I signed my full name, the name my mother gave me. I made 3 copies on the photocopier I bought when I was the secretary of the garden club. The next morning, I drove to the post office on Calhoun Street and mailed the certified letter to my own address. Hazel had told me to do this. She said it would establish a chain of custody. The clerk asked me if I wanted insurance, and I told her no, I just wanted the receipt. When I got home, my granddaughter's car was in the driveway. So was Marcus's truck. I parked behind them. I took my receipt and my copy of the letter, and I walked into my own house. They were both in the living room. The television was on. Marcus was eating a sandwich on my couch. My couch is upholstered in a fabric I had specially ordered from a mill in North Carolina the year before my husband died. It cost me more than I wanted to spend, but my husband told me to do it. He said, "Get the fabric you love. You're going to be sitting on it for a long time." There were crumbs on the fabric. There were crumbs on the fabric my dead husband told me to buy. Marcus. He looked up. He had a smear of mayonnaise on his lower lip. He's a tall man, broad-shouldered, with the kind of confidence that comes from never having faced a real consequence. He has been told his whole life that he is charming, and he has come to believe it. "Hey there, we were just talking about you." "I imagine you were." I held out the letter. "This is for both of you. Please read it now." My granddaughter took the letter. She read it. Her face went through 3 different expressions, none of which were ones I had seen on her before. Marcus read it over her shoulder. He started laughing. "You can't be serious." "Grandma, come on. I am not your grandmother. I have asked you not to call me that. My name is on the letter. This isn't legal. You can't just throw us out. We've been living here. We have an established residence. Read the letter, Marcus. You have until October 31st. That is 30 days from today. I am being more than fair." My granddaughter started crying again. Real this time, I think. "I cannot believe you're doing this to me. Your own flesh and blood. After everything. After everything." What? She didn't have an answer. There was no after everything. There was only after I had given them a home, and they had treated it like a hotel that didn't charge. "I am going to my bedroom now. I am closing the door. I am not having any more conversations about this. The terms are in writing. If you want to discuss them with someone, you can discuss them with my attorney, whose name is at the bottom of the letter." I walked past them. I walked down the hallway. I went into my bedroom, and I closed the door, and I sat on the edge of my bed, and I waited to feel something. I thought I would feel grief or guilt or rage, but what I felt was something else. It was the feeling I had when I was 19 and I left my parents' house to get married. It was the feeling I had when I was 46 and I sold my mother's wedding ring to pay for my son's college. It was the feeling of having done a thing that needed to be done. For 3 days, they didn't speak to me. I cooked my meals. I ate them at the kitchen table. I watched the evening news in the living room. The crumbs were gone from the couch. Marcus stayed out of the common areas when he heard me coming. On the 4th day, my granddaughter knocked on my bedroom door. "Come in." She came in. She had been crying. Her face had that puffy look she used to get as a little girl when she'd fallen off her bike. "Grandma, can we please talk?" I was sitting in my reading chair, the green one, by the window. I had been reading a book about a woman in Maine who moves to a lighthouse after her husband dies. I marked my page. "You can sit on the bed." She sat on the bed. She wouldn't look at me. "I've been thinking about everything, and I know I handled it wrong. I should have talked to you differently. I should not have said what I said. I'm sorry." "All right, it's just Marcus is under a lot of pressure. His mom has been telling him we need to grow up and get our own life and stop relying on you. And he got it in his head that the best way to do that was to, get the situation moving. And he convinced me. But I shouldn't have let him convince me. You're my grandmother. You raised me." I don't know what I was thinking. I looked at her for a long time. I looked at her face, which was the face of the woman she was becoming, and the little girl she had been, all at the same time. And I thought about how easy it would be to forgive her. To say, "Well, sweetheart, you're young and you got carried away. Stay another 6 months. Stay another year." But I had been making that kind of forgiveness my whole life. To my father, who never quite approved of who I was. To my husband, who could be cold sometimes when his work wasn't going well. To my son, who left me in this house alone after my husband died and called me twice a year. To my granddaughter's mother, who dropped her off when she was 8 and disappeared for 6 years. I had made forgiveness into a kind of currency, and I had paid it out to everyone in my life, and I had never asked what it bought me. "Sweetheart, I appreciate you saying that, I do. Does that mean no?" "The date stands, October 31st. Her face crumpled. "But Grandma, I am not punishing you. I am not even angry anymore. I have thought about this carefully. The truth is, I should have asked you to leave a year ago. I should have asked you to leave when you stopped saying thank you for dinner. I should have asked you to leave when Marcus broke your grandfather's fishing rod and didn't tell me, and I had to find out when I went to use it. I should have asked you to leave when I realized you were treating my home like a place you were entitled to, instead of a place where you were a guest. I have been a coward, sweetheart. I have been so afraid of being alone that I let you treat me like I wasn't here, and I won't do that anymore. Not because I don't love you, because I do." She didn't say anything. There wasn't anything left to say. She got up, and she went back to the guest room. The day after that, Marcus tried something. He came home in the middle of the afternoon with a man I didn't recognize. The man was wearing a polo shirt with a logo on it. He had a clipboard. Marcus brought him into my house without ringing the bell. "This is my buddy Trevor. He works in real estate. He's just going to take a quick walk through. Get a sense of the place." I was in the living room. I had been watching a documentary about whales. Trevor. I stood up. I am not a tall woman, but I have a way of standing that has been known to make people pay attention. "I'm sorry, but I don't recall inviting you into my home." Trevor looked at Marcus. Marcus said, "Grandma, come on, he's just looking. My name is not Grandma, and this man is in my house without my permission. Trevor, I am asking you to leave. If you don't leave immediately, I will call the Charleston police and report you for trespassing." Trevor looked at Marcus again. Then he looked at me. Then he looked at the door. He chose the door. He walked out without saying a word. He didn't even close the door behind him. Marcus turned on me. His face was red. The charm was gone. "What is your problem?" He was doing me a favor. Do you have any idea what kind of position you're putting us in? We have nowhere to go. That is not my problem anymore. You are a selfish old woman. Maybe, but I am a selfish old woman in her own house. You have 26 days. He went into the guest bedroom and he slammed the door so hard that my mother's china rattled in the cabinet. I went into the kitchen and I opened the cabinet and I checked every single piece. Nothing was broken. I had been collecting that china one piece at a time since I was 25 years old. None of it was broken. The next morning, I called Hazel and told her what had happened. She told me to write it all down. The date, the time, the name on the polo shirt, the make of the truck Marcus had pulled up in. She told me this was good. She told me this was the kind of thing that would help us if it came to it. It did not come to it. On October 29th, 2 days before the deadline, my granddaughter and Marcus loaded up his truck and her car, and they drove away. I was sitting on my front porch in my mother's rocking chair drinking a cup of coffee. They did not say goodbye. My granddaughter looked at me from the driver's seat, and her face was tired, and I think she wanted to say something, but Marcus was pulling out of the driveway, and she had to follow him. I watched her tail lights go down Trad Street, the same street I had watched her ride her bicycle on when she was 9. I sat on the porch for a long time after they were gone. The neighbor's dog was barking. The trolley was rumbling down East Bay. The whole city was going on around me, exactly the way it had before they came, exactly the way it would when I was gone. I called a locksmith that afternoon. He came the next day and changed every lock on the house. I paid him in cash. I gave him a cup of coffee while he worked. He told me his mother had been through something similar, and she'd never been the same. I told him I was going to be fine. I have been fine. It has been 7 months. I have heard from my granddaughter twice. Once on Christmas to wish me a Merry Christmas, and once in March to ask if I had any of her old yearbooks she could borrow. I sent the yearbooks. I did not invite her to come pick them up. I mailed them. She mailed back a thank you note. It was polite. It did not ask to see me. I think she understood, finally, what I had been trying to tell her. Or maybe she just understood that I wasn't going to change my mind. Either way, the result is the same. I do not know what has happened to Marcus. My son told me when he finally called that they were living with Marcus's mother in North Charleston. My son told me he thought I had been too hard on her. My son lives in Denver. My son had not been to this house in 3 years. I told my son that I appreciated his concern. I told him I would think about what he said. I did not think about it. I do not have to think about it anymore. That is something I have learned. I do not have to think about every opinion that arrives in my house uninvited. I am sitting at my grandmother's kitchen table as I write this down. The blue china cup is in front of me. The Earl Grey is the right temperature. The light is coming through the window in that amber color that I have decided, after 71 years, is my favorite color in the world. There is no one else in this house. The silence is not empty. It is full of all the years I have lived here, and all the years I have left, and all the things I have finally learned to say no to. You are allowed to want your home to be yours. You are allowed to ask people to leave, even people you love, even people you raised. You are allowed to put a date on an open invitation. You are allowed to choose the quiet of your own kitchen over the noise of a guest who has forgotten she was ever a guest. I learned this late, but I learned it, and I am writing it down so that if anyone else needs to hear it, they will know that an old woman in Charleston, South Carolina, sitting at her grandmother's table on a Tuesday afternoon in May, looked up from her tea and decided that her own life was worth defending. It was. It is. It always will be. I've been thinking about cause and effect lately, about how every quiet moment in my kitchen now is the direct result of a moment when I finally stopped being quiet. For 18 months, I told myself that letting my granddaughter and Marcus stay was kindness. I see now that it was something else. It was fear wearing the costume of kindness. I was so afraid of an empty house that I let 2 people fill it with disrespect, and I called that love. The hard truth I had to face, sitting at my grandmother's table that afternoon, was that every time I said nothing about the dishes, every time I paid for Marcus's car insurance without being thanked, every time I smiled at a remark that stung, I was teaching them how to treat me. People do not arrive in your home one morning and decide to disrespect you. They learn it, lesson by lesson, from the silences you give them. My granddaughter did not become entitled overnight. I taught her, slowly and tenderly, and without meaning to, that my comfort was negotiable and hers was not. That is the part I want any woman listening to this to understand. Goodness is not the same as goodness without limits. A person can be kind and still say no. A person can love her family and still ask them to leave. In fact, I've come to believe that real love, the kind that lasts, requires both. The grandmother who never said no was not loving her granddaughter, she was avoiding her. And avoidance, dressed up in soft words and warm meals, becomes its own kind of harm. Wisdom, I have learned, is mostly the willingness to see what is in front of you. I had all the information I needed about Marcus the first month he lived in my house. I had all the information I needed about my granddaughter the first time she sat down at my table without being asked. I just did not want to see it, because seeing it meant doing something, and doing something meant being alone. The day I called Hazel was the day I chose to see clearly. And every good thing that came afterward, the quiet mornings, the steady tea, the locks that only my key opens, came from that one choice to look at the truth. The courage part is the hardest to talk about, because courage at 71 does not look like courage at 25. It is not loud. It is a fountain pen on good stationery. It is a 30-day notice mailed certified. It is a steady hand pouring boiling water over an Earl Grey tea bag while your heart is breaking. I want you to know that you do not need to feel brave to act bravely. You only need to do the next correct thing, and then the one after that. Write the letter, make the call, open the door. Your life is worth the trouble of defending it. Mine was. Yours is too.